Hi, it's Latoya with Adreamori Hypnosis, and today I want to talk about inner work and how doing inner work can affect and benefit your external world. So, as always, coming from a space of authenticity and integrity, it is my intention to share with you the benefits of doing internal work and to inspire and empower you to overcome your challenges. So, when I talk about inner work and your inner world, I might say that as well. I'm talking about your perspective, your emotions, your state of mind, your mood, your responses. It's the things within you that you can control. Because I always say all the time, you cannot control other people, you cannot control the weather. It is my belief that when we do the proper internal work, our external world starts to shift. I love the serenity prayer that states, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And so sometimes when I think about this, I think about, say, a storm. There's a storm, and how you move in a storm affects how you see that storm. So, because sometimes it rains, right? We can't control the rain. And sometimes it rains. It is a natural part of life. Some people may want to cuddle up. When it starts to rain, they want to cuddle up, read a nice book, maybe get some good sleep. Some feel that their plans are canceled when it rains, and some grab a rain jacket, they grab their rain boots and an umbrella, and they keep it moving. Rain is not always bad. To me, in my opinion, it never is. Rain is rain. It is a part of life. The purpose of it is if you understand the process of condensation, evaporation, this whole thing. This is kind of what's happening when it rains, right? We see this like on a water bottle, of how it can be condensation on the bottle, and then it can trickle back down the bottle, right? Rain also has purposes of hydrating and moisturizing the land. It's giving water to crops, so it has its benefits. When we start to attach emotions, feelings, and a experience or a story to this neutral stimuli as rain, then that's when we start to paint the story and start to have feelings towards it, and what we create in our reality. So someone could say, I don't like the rain because it cancels my plans, right? And that is just a feeling, an attachment, a feeling, emotions that we've attached to it based off of our life experience. But that does not always have to be, because obviously not everyone feels this way about rain. Rain can be very welcomed if you're going through a drought, if you're living in a desert. Rain can be welcomed. And so I am a firm believer that your outside world, your external world, is a reflection of your internal world. So I talk about this when I talk about manifestations. This is why I talk about when you change your mental state, when you start doing affirmations and manifestations, that your external world will start to shift. And so that's why I like the serenity prayer, because I feel that there are things that you can change. There's things that you cannot change. But the one thing that you always have control over is your internal world, your internal state, your mental state, your state of mind, your perspectives. This is why I do what I do. This is why I love to share information. And I have so many personal life experiences. And this is why I share so many stories with you all, because I really want to share and encourage you all to be able to make changes in your life based off of changing your internal state. Right? Because I live, like the things I speak about, I live this life. Okay. I live this. I have personal experience, personal results from this. I live this. And this is why I share this with you, because I know this to be true, because I've experienced it. And I want to share my experiences with you so that maybe it could help you, right? It's not for everybody. This is just sharing because it may help somebody. Okay. And so given that, again, it's my firm belief that when you change your internal world, your external world shifts accordingly. Okay. So a personal example I'm going to give you, I'm going to tell you a personal story, but it's going to be kind of vague, just because it is a very private, very sensitive topic for me, but the story is very true, and the experience is very true, and the point of the story is something that I feel other people can get from it. So I was harboring these resentment feelings inside me for a very long time, and these feelings ran very deep. Someone very close to me who was very close to me for a very long time, it's who I was holding these feelings of resentments towards. Now, before I got into hypnotherapy, before I became a hypnotherapist, I had been doing a lot of spiritual work. And when I say spiritual work, I mean internal, right? Because we all have our internal, our individual spirit. And so when you talk about spirituality, is that connecting with oneself and being connected to one's inner spirit. That's how I see it. So when I say I'm doing spiritual work, so I was doing a lot of spiritual work. For me, in this case, this involved me doing a lot of processing of my feelings, processing of my internal thoughts. And this was done through meditation. This is done through being introspective. I'm very, very introspective. So I was doing a lot of internal work. So I'll say spiritual work, but I'm going to say internal work because to me right now, in this case, it's one and the same. So I was doing a lot of internal work, and I began to forgive this person. I processed a lot of the feelings that I had about the situation, and then I began to forgive them, right? And the way I see it, that this person actually didn't do anything wrong. They did not intentionally try to hurt me. They were just being who they were, and who they were incited feelings inside of me that made me harbor these resentment feelings. So I decided to forgive this person. I did my internal work to forgive this person so I can move on, so I can have a better life and not be triggered. So I was being triggered by a lot of outside world things. This is how I see it, is that the reason I was seeing, excuse me, the way that I see it, that the reason I was seeing so many things out in my outside world that triggered me, because all it did was represent something that had not been resolved, something that I was having an issue with, and it continued to play out in my outside world. I was being triggered by my outside world based off of internal work that needed to be done, or a personal situation very close to me, the resentment, the feelings, right, that I was harboring inside that had not been resolved. So anyway, after I had forgiven this person on my own, right, I did not speak with this person. I never told them what the issue was. It was all work that I did on my own. About a year later, roughly, this person ended up saying something to me that I felt like I had been waiting my entire life to hear. I didn't even know that the deepest part of me, the little girl, I said my little girl, my child self, was waiting to hear these words. Like the words that this person said to me, I can't even explain it, like was so exact to the situation that, like, I feel like those words that this person said, had it been said as a child, and maybe it was said as a child, I don't know, maybe I don't remember. Had it been said to me as a child, I feel like those resentment feelings may have never developed. Like this person said something to me that I really needed to hear, and I didn't know I needed to hear it. And when they said those words to me, I remember feeling like a billion bucks. Like I felt so good. It was just amazing feeling. Now, after I had forgiven this person on my own, our relationship did change. It changed for the better. But I say the reason this relationship changed was because I changed the way that I felt about the situation. I changed the way that I chose to view and see this person through my eyes. And then later, they said something to me that my little girl self really needed to hear. And when I think about it, had that person had said something to me before I did that internal work and forgiven that person, I can't guarantee that I would have even accepted it, that I would have heard it the same, that I would have even had the same benefit, right? That it would have meant the same to me. Because if I'm still harboring these unresolved feelings, feeling broken about it, having, these issues that I have not resolved, it would not have mattered what happened in my external world. It would not have mattered what that person externally said to me, because at the end of the day, I had not processed that issue. And so it doesn't matter what they said to me. I don't think I would have heard it. And it's just my personal belief. I don't think the words would have ever came. I really don't think those words would have come had I not have done the internal work. And this is when you get into those quotes that talk about accepting the apology you never received, right? Life becomes easier when we learn to accept the apology we never received, or I never knew how strong I was until I learned to accept the apology I never received, right? There's a couple of quotes like this. So So we cannot change the past. We can, there's another quote that I read. We cannot change the past. We can only change the way we feel about it. And I can tell you from personal experience, no, you cannot change the past, but I feel like this process is the best, the closest that you can get to it. Because once I did the internal work, and after those words came, especially when those words came, I did the internal work and I was fine. But when those words came, it was almost like, not like the past never happened, but it was like I couldn't really, like, the feelings that I had, those triggers that were the emotions and the feelings that were attached to an external situation no longer held weight anymore. It no longer held that weight. And it's hard to explain, but you know, when you're being triggered or when there's something out there that's bringing up something that you notice that brings up a feeling for you, like a heavier feeling of sadness, a anger, a guilt, this feeling of something that of an external representation of a personal experience you've been through, and it feels heavy in your heart, right? You feel it. A lot of times you feel it in your heart, but you can feel it many places, right? I'm saying my heart because that's where I felt it, but you feel it. But when you do this work, when you start to see this external stimuli that represents something that you've gone through, it no longer has those heavy feelings attached to it. It feels lighter. And so when I say, while I did not change the past, the way that I see what happened in the past, it doesn't look the same anymore. It doesn't feel the same anymore. And so I can move through life, through that situation, feeling lighter about the situation. And this is what I mean by doing external work that shifts your external world. And okay, so I'm going to get kind of out there because that's just, I can't help it. But I think about the movie, The Butterfly Effect. The first one. I don't think I saw the second. I don't think the second one was as good. And the third one was probably even worse. But I don't know. I didn't see it. But the first one, when they talked about how he would always try and go back and change something in the past. And he changed something by changing a small aspect of the past, it would literally cause this chain reaction that would completely change the reality that he was in now. So there's a lot of truth, to this, how it works, but pretty much it's the same concept. So I talked about my last video, I talked about past life regressions, and I talked about parallel lives and how that kind of works. So it kind of plays into the same thing because everything's all connected. I've said this many times, but anyway, everything's all connected. You can break them down and categorize them in different ways so we can understand them, but everything is all connected. So everything, this is connected as well. Okay. But anyway, it's pretty much when you decide to change the way that you saw a past life situation. I'm sorry, not past life, a memory, a past issue that you've had. For example, my situation, when I decided to go back in there, acknowledge my feelings, resolve them, forgive them, and start to see this person differently. That's why I said this is as close as you're going to get to changing the past. Okay. You cannot change it, but you can change the way you feel about it. And that will shift your external world. And so when you think about the butterfly effect, when he went in and he started changing little things, now his whole world looked differently. Now that is a movie. So of course, everything that he seemed to do seemed to be very tragic. Like there was always some tragic thing. That is not always how it has to be. It doesn't even, what you consider tragic is again, a going on, your experience and your feelings, emotions that you put towards it. At the end of the day, when you shift something in your internal world, your external world shifts. And this is why I talk about manifestations, why you can manifest things and they can start to show up in your real world. So anyway, I did the internal work. I forgave this person. I acknowledged my feelings and I moved on and my external world shifted. This is a real concept. Don't let the movie make you think it's just make believe that no. This is real concept that happened in real life. The movie can exaggerate it or show something, but anyway, a lot of things in these movies have a lot of truth to them and they're painted as fantasy, but I'm not going to go there today. Okay. I don't have enough time in this video to go there. Anyway, just know. Oh, and there was a quote in The Butterfly Effect that I love. He said, you cannot go back and change. I'm not great at remembering. It's been so long, but something about you cannot go back and change the past, or you cannot go back and change someone's life, or you cannot go back and change something without changing who they were. So pretty much saying when you decide to change something, you essentially change who you were. And this is like the epitome. This is what transformation is. This is the ultimate transformation. So, and this happens so many ways in life. So we think that we're just changing something, but anyway, this is how we change the past. So I'm going to leave that there. We're going to move on. What I want to share with you all is that there is a peace. There is a peace internally, and there is a peace externally when it comes to that situation now. When before I was being triggered and being upset about stuff that should not even make me upset, like seeing stuff in my external world that represented that issue should not have upset me, but it did, based on the issues that I had, the feelings I was harboring and have not been resolved. There is a peace now with that situation when I see it in my external world, and there's a peace within me when it comes to the relationship that I have with this person, and it's beautiful. And I wish this for everyone. I wish everyone who is having some feelings attached to something that's triggering them, something that's upsetting them, because there is another way to be. You do not have to walk around with feelings of pain, of sorrow, of hurt, of sadness, of anger. That does not have to be your only story or your story at all if you don't want it to be. It does not have to be who you are. See, we walk around with these things attached to us, these feelings, these stories, these emotions. We walk around with these things for so long that it becomes a part of us. It becomes who we are, our story. But again, I'm letting you know that it's not. It is not our story. It is an experience that is attached to us. It is an experience, is the feelings that we have attached to us, but it is not who we are, and you can release them. See, and another thing is, so I read this book, The Untethered Soul. I believe this was an Untethered Soul, a very popular book. And I like this book because it talked about your emotions, and it talked about how your emotions are not supposed to be trapped. They're supposed to flow through. You acknowledge your feelings and acknowledge your emotions, and you release them and let them go. Because I wasn't going to talk about astrology, but that's again one of the lenses through which I see the world. But lightly, emotions is ruled by the moon. And when you think about the moon and the tides, so when there's a full moon, it affects the tides. And because we are about 70% water, that if the moon can affect the tides in the water, it can affect the water within us. And this is why during a full moon, some people will believe it, some will not. Some police, law enforcement, some medical professionals, especially emergency department or the labor and delivery, may tell you during a full moon, they're going to see an influx of odd behaviors, of maybe pregnancies and all kind of stuff, right? And this is because the moon affects us, right? And the moon in astrology works with your emotional state, right? And so the moon rules Cancer, which is a water sign. So when you think about water, I'm done with astrology. I just want to make that connection, right? But when I think about emotions, I think about water and about how emotions are flowing. They're ebbing and they're flowing and they're moving. It is not supposed to be something that's hard and fixed. And it's supposed to move through you. So when we have emotions and we decide to bottle them up and hold them in place, that's where a lot of stuff can start to brew, and we can have many issues when we hold these emotional feelings, these emotional states that is supposed to have been flown to fly through. We're supposed to acknowledge them, let them feel them. We're supposed to feel them because we are human. That's a part of the human experience. And then we're supposed to release them and let them go. Just like you don't like to be restricted, I don't like to be restricted. Nothing likes to be restricted. Your emotions don't want to be restricted either. They need to pass through. So when we start to harbor these feelings, like I did specifically, harboring these feelings of resentment or whatever it is that you're harboring as you're holding in, even if it's grief, and maybe you're not harboring feelings of hatred, maybe it's sadness, it's grief that you're holding in, it needs to pass through. It needs a proper outlet to pass through. And so when we hold on to these things for too long, like I said, they start to become a part of us and they come like fixed and part of our being, but that's not how it's supposed to be. And this is why we can have a lot of issues that kind of come from that. And so I just want to encourage you and let you know that if you're harboring feelings, there are many outlets. There are many ways to release these things. They do not define who you are, and you absolutely can release them so that you can be lighter in your being, right? And I'm telling you from experience, when you let that thing go, when you let that thing flow right out of you, the feeling that you have, I'm telling you, feels like your whole life has felt this way. It feels like I said, the past feels different now. And I wish this for everyone. So with that being said, I do want to leave a few free 99 tips, right? Even though I am a hypnotherapy and I love hypnotherapists, if you've watched any of my videos, I will always give you effective free tips that can help you. Do not have to take any of this. You do not have to do any of this. This is just me sharing, right? Because I said that this process that I did to release these feelings and forgive this person and move on happened way before hypnotherapy. So there are many avenues out here in the world that you can do to help you get through something. To each their own, whatever worked for you. You do not have to pay a lot of money, and you do not have to use another person, but sometimes you may need to. And this is why you have professionals out here for many reasons who do different things that can help. There are many modalities that you can use to get what it is that you need. So my tips are going to be based off of what I did. Is one, identify your triggers. So your triggers are going to be something in your external world that upsets you, right? Or that makes you sad, something. And a lot of the time, the way that I identify is like there's something that's very neutral, like I said, the rain. But when you start to attach these feelings towards the rain, well, why do I feel this way? I should not hate the rain, or the rain should not make me sad. Why is that so, right? So when you start having these emotions or these feelings attached to a very neutral situation, anger or whatever it is, you're going to know that that's triggering you. And so you can process it. Okay, well, why am I feeling this way? When is the first time that I've experienced this? What does this represent in my real world? So this is when I talk about hypnotherapy, right? And this is like past life regressions. What in my life mimics this situation? Or just doing hypnotherapy to get into a space where you can be very introspective. Hypnotherapy helps you be introspective, and it also helps you be objective. So what I mean by objective is, if we're so emotionally tied into a situation, it is hard for us to see it objectively. Seeing something objectively allows us to see a situation for how it is, for what it is, and lets us see the neutral situation, and kind of helps us separate that neutral situation from what emotions that we tie, what feelings we tie for. It's so great at that, like great at that. So once we get into that space, then we can start to objectively see your situation and be able to see what it is and what are we attaching to it. And that's a beautiful place to be able to see it. Anyway, if you're doing this at home or doing it on your own, how I did it was, it's acknowledging your emotions. This situation triggers me because of this. This situation makes me feel because of this. Why do I'm sad? Why does this make me upset? Why does this make me angry? Why am I so sad about this situation? And it's very introspective. You kind of talk to yourself. Talk to yourself out loud. Okay, I talk to myself a lot. I talk out loud to myself a lot. Okay, a car is a great place to do it if you have one. Being alone too. If you're always having so much stimuli, if you have a lot of people in your home, if you're always having radio on or TV, fine, you can do that. But for this, it'd be great to take some time away from all that. Go into a park, go into your car, go in the backyard, go somewhere where you can have peace and quiet, and then you can talk out loud to yourself, or talk in your head if you don't want to talk out loud. I like talking out loud because something about taking it from in my head into out in the world and being able to hear that back, right? To each their own, but to be able to process what it is and call it out. Like, I feel like I talked about this in another video, when we have things that are suppressed and buried within us, it has to kind of surface a little bit. It has to surface a bit. So let it surface, and then to acknowledge that, and then you can work on trying to forgive whatever you feel is to quote unquote blame in that situation. So what I mean by that is that writing a forgiveness letter is great. You can say it out loud, or you can write a forgiveness letter to whatever in that situation you feel like, even if it was, to blame or not, if you feel like that is what's to blame, if you don't find a way to resolve that, then it's always going to be to blame, even if it was or not, right? So it does it. And this is what I love about this type of work, because there really is no wrong answer. I mean, I guess there could be, but in this case, it's no wrong answer. If I feel like this person is to blame, if I feel like this situation is to blame, if someone tells you it's not, you're not going to receive that. You're not going to listen to that. It's not going to mean the same to you, because even if you hear what that person's saying consciously, and this is when we start getting to subconscious work, even if someone consciously says, no, that person didn't do that, and you're like, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But deep down inside, subconsciously, you believe that is to blame. So if someone tells you it's not, you might agree with them, sure, but your subconscious is always going to reign supreme, right? It's always going to be the driver, right? It's always going to be that motivator. So yeah, this person said that this is not the cause, but why do I still feel this way, right? Because your subconscious doesn't believe that. So you have to work through it. So if you feel like this person is to blame, if you feel like this situation is to blame, and so an example, I'm just going to make a very light example. So say you were riding your bike as a child, and you fell off your bike, and there's a bunch of kids who laughed at you. Okay, the kids are laughing, so you can acknowledge your feelings. That made me embarrassed, that made me hurt, this, that, and the third. And then write a letter. Dear kids, I forgive you. This was 20 years ago. We were all young. You don't know why I was riding my bike so fast. I was really excited to see my friend. It was my birthday. I had a gift waiting for them. I wanted to go see this play. I wanted to go see the waterworks. Like, they don't know where I was going, why I was, biking so fast. They don't even know me. They don't know my personality. They don't know how great I am. You know what I mean? Things like that. And I forgive them for because they don't know me. And it was 20 years ago and we were all children, or something like that. To write a letter to a person of blame. But say there was no kids there and you fell off your bike and you hurt yourself, and you want to be like, oh, I ran over a rock. Well, then you can say, you know what, rock, I forgive you. I forgive you. You were just in the way. You're just a rock, you're part of nature, things like that. So you always write what it is to blame. You can always write a forgiveness letter to that. And something else too, and this work does require you to be able to objectively see a situation too. Sometimes, right? And I always say this is like a little bit more of an advanced practice, just because you have to, before you can write a forgiveness letter, you really have to acknowledge the feelings. So you can't just write a forgiveness letter, because if you can, but acknowledge the feelings first. But this is a very advanced practice, but this is for who it worked. It can work, obviously. So this is just me giving tips, right? Of course, all situations may not be piece of cake, piece of pie to forgive, right? And I'm not saying that. And just because you forgive a situation or you forgive a person for something, does that, I was raised that, you can forgive, but you can't forget. It's just my personal experience that you can love from a distance. So just because you're forgiving a situation doesn't mean you leave yourself open to be hurt again. And that's a whole nother video, a whole nother topic. But for the point being, writing a forgiveness letter releases you, right? Because you are holding on to, especially if something that's a past that's not occurring, you are still holding on to it, and it affects your life. So you releasing and forgiving has to do absolutely 100% with you. It has not to have to do with whatever external world happened anymore. You are actually releasing that, and you absolutely have the power, absolutely have the birthright, the right to release things that no longer serve you. You've heard that, right? Release that no longer serve you. Release the things that are causing you pain and hurt. And you have the control within yourself to do this introspective spiritual work. It's called introspective inner work, to release things for your better, right? This is all about you. This is, all about you time. Okay. You have the right to release that. You can if you want. You absolutely can. This is about you. Okay. So anyway, lastly, I was going to say too is that you can write a letter to yourself to forgive yourself. For example, this is just a small, very light example. And say you were walking in the woods as a child and you got lost, you got home late and you got yelled at, and I forgive myself for getting lost. But and then say, I understand that I just love nature, I love exploring, the time got by me, I left my compass at home, so this, that, or the third, right? You can write a letter to forgive yourself for whatever it is, and it may not be easy to do that. I feel like self-forgiveness can be very challenging, but it doesn't I don't feel like that is any different from anything else. If something needs to be forgiven, like I said, if subconsciously find yourself to blame for something, and even if you are or are not, and that's the thing too, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're not to blame. If you feel that you are, if someone can tell you all day, no, you're not to blame, you're not to blame, but if you feel that you are, you're still going to operate from a principle of a life that you are to blame for a situation. So forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Write a letter, and it may not be one letter. Maybe you may have to do it a couple of times, and this is when we start to get into affirmation and manifestation, stuff like that, how to start to forgive yourself. But I'm not going down there down that route. This is just very light tips that if it works for you, if you want to try it, you can. And then lastly, my last tip would be, it may be appropriate for you to, escalate this, or see an appropriate a provider, appropriate professional to help you deal with some of these issues. I am, like I said, you can do a lot on your own. I have. And sometimes we can't. Sometimes also it's okay to know that, this may be bigger than what I may be able to handle. And I talked about doing internal work too, is, using discernment to find what is a better, appropriate way to be able to deal with the situation. Also, joining a group, of like-minded people. There's Facebook groups, if you have Facebook, of a healthy Facebook group where you can share like-minded things. Joining a meetup group if it's safe, finding support outside of you for your situation, because there's always someone who's going through something similar. No two situations are exactly alike, but at the same time, there are people who've been where you are, who are going through it, and it's nice to feel supported in a group. So I think this video was long enough. I hope this was very helpful to someone. I just want to say again that you do not have to harbor these feelings inside. You do not have to walk around triggered. Okay, there are way too many resources out here. I believe we are in a beautiful time right now. I know there's a lot going on, but I feel like when you are in a tight situation, when things start getting tight, it's because there's an external energy of change. There's external energy of change that can really help you foster growth and expansion. And I wish that for everyone. I do. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, take care.